that plane to find out what happened. Now, Jerry Dwyer always claimed there was a bullet fired from the back to the seat to kill the pilot. But see, that can't be true, Andrew, because the only person who had an autopsy was the pilot. They would have found a bullet hole. But, you know, there are some strange things about the plane, some strange things that happened. So, you know, some of the crash sites. I mean, for me, that was interesting is when the plane crashed, you had Buddy Holly laying on one side of the fuselage, you had Richie Valens on the other. The pilot was strapped in his seat, and J.P. Richardson, the big bopper, was 40 feet in front of the plane over a fence.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was sitting behind Buddy Holly in the plane.
And I actually heard that whole crash site was actually staged. That it wasn't even the plane. That it was actually another plane that they took a picture of. Another plane crash. So the whole thing wasn't even real. And I heard that long time ago.
Well, see, that's what makes rock and roll interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We have all these great things we can research, more great stories we can find, and in this case, who knows, we may find an answer.
Right.
But it would be nice to know what happened on February 3rd, 1959.
Well, I mean, back then, there's a whole different economics. I mean, the economics of music is, of course, different because of the technology. But back then, there were a lot of artists who, like Buddy, were, writing and producing, and they got points in the albums in every way, and there's a lot of money to be made in that, and sometimes people don't want to share. You see this a lot in Nashville. The one that jumps out to me, what was the guy's name? Wayne Garland. That was in a car wreck when he was in a coma, and because he was trying to, they wouldn't give him, credit as a musician and as a writer and all these things. They sort of stole that money from him. So when you brought up Jimi Hendrix, you're bringing up money. When people think about Kurt Cobain and all the royalties associated with Nirvana till the end of time, they're thinking about money. Mm-hmm. And certainly with Buddy and not so much Richie Valens, I don't think, and the Big Bopper, because I don't think they had the body of work that Buddy Holly did. But again, you're looking at, there's a financial, when you think of like crime scenes investigations, you think about, there's always that money motive. I mean, that's a lot of times what people go to first. Is there a love interest or a money interest? And that's, kind of what sets the list of the suspects. We're going to get a break here for just a few minutes, and I just want to do like a short break too, but we'll be back, and I want to kind of pick your brain a bit about some of these things, because there's a lot of brain to pick, so that's always fun. We have another hour. But I want to delve more, because I got my own thing with Buddy Holly, of course, with the reincarnation aspects of Buddy Holly, and you see, and we got 50 different Buddy Holly angles we can go. So we're going to come back, and we're going to focus for a time on Buddy Holly and that plane crash on February 3rd, 1959. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to Rock and Roll Psychic Radio with our guest, R. Gary Patterson. We will see you all in just a few minutes.
Stay tuned for more from Andrew Brewer and his guests right after these messages. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Please join us every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for Dear Emmy with Elizabeth Rose on the Hazy Radio Network.
Son of a...
Hey, Doug. Doug, what are you doing?
Oh, hey, Scott. I'm getting ready for Periscope Uncensored on Friday nights.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Well, Doug, the Uncensored and Periscope Uncensored is Clarissa Vasquez and getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. It's not what you'd call a traditional radio program. There's no fluff on their show.
So no off-color commentary?
Well, I didn't say that.
Awesome! Oh,
Doug?
I just hit my head.
Oh, boy. I'll get you a nice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, only on the Hazy Radio Network.
You read the paper. You watch the news. Have you ever considered that you're not getting the whole story? This is Dr. Truth.
And this is Dr. Drake. Tune in to the radio show Earth, Saturday nights, 10 to midnight.
We'll be exposing what the elites are doing all over the world.
We don't want you to believe us. Get a pen out and check us out.
It's the radio show accused of telling the truth. Earth.
The most controversial planet in the solar system. Saturday nights, 10 to midnight, Eastern Time, on the Hazy Radio Network.
Would you like to get in on something that's ground floor right now, but has the potential to be the biggest thing of its kind in the world? You can do it right now by hosting your own show or sponsoring one of your favorite shows at the Hazy Radio Network. All you have to do is send us an email to admin@hazyradionetwork.com. We'll get back to you with all the details about sponsoring one of our fine shows that we already have, or you can do a show yourself. If you've always had that inner disc jockey in yourself and thought you'd be really good at it, this is a good way to find out. So join us right here on the fastest growing, fastest paced, bestest internet radio network, the Hazy Radio Network. Remember, that's admin@hazyradionetwork.com.
You are a waste. A loser. Everyone hates you. Why don't you just stay in your car and keep driving? I'm serious. Drive until you run out of gas, then get out of your car and walk until you find someone who doesn't think you're dumber than bricks. Could take a while, but at least all that walking might burn a couple of calories.
You may not witness bullying like this every day. Your kids do. They want to help, but they don't know how. Visit stopbullying.gov to learn safe, simple ways your child can help stop bullying. Be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Barclays big stage is so Brooklyn. Shine bright highlights is so Brooklyn. Black and white unite with full Brooklyn. Losing rain and the end is still Brooklyn. I never thought anything without first of all saying God is everything. If it wasn't for God, I never ever would have been.
Let me tell you where I'm from, Bed-Stuy, where they say you gotta do or die. Brownsville and it's still never and never will. Don't try to ever take my pride. It ain't been easy, but I wouldn't trade it 'cause that's how I made it. Anybody wanna know who the
We are back, Rock and Roll Psychic Radio, and we're putting the rock and roll in Rock and Roll Psychic tonight. Our guest, R. Gary Patterson, the Fox Mulder of rock and roll. I somehow have inherited the title of the Rock and Roll Psychic, and when you think of rock star, and you think of vivacious and lovely, and Scott Hare's not in your mind already, that's ZDoc. Now, I know people think, dude, you're like the weirdest guy ever.
No, they know you by now.
You were like a really sort of well-known psychic. I know it's surprising. But before we went to break, we were talking about weird things that happened. Potential murder conspiracy with Jimi Hendrix. You're like, did I miss that? Yes, if you weren't here the first hour, you missed that. So you'll be playing the archives. But we were also talking about the plane crash, the day the music died, Don McLean's, inspiration, February 3rd, 1959. Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and a teenage Richie Valens. Not to mention the pilot. But, and I got my own connection, of course, to Buddy Holly, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. But Zeta drops this little bombshell.
I always have a bombshell.
Real quiet, Zeta. And what did you say, Zeta? Repeat that again.
I heard back in the 70s. Now, I used to know and hang out with a 1950s revival band up here in the Midwest called the White Sidewalls. And people in the Midwest will know who they are. Anybody from Wisconsin, Minnesota, North, South Dakota, Iowa would know them. And there was one gentleman in the band who was a reincarnate, I swear, of Buddy Holly. He looked exactly like Buddy Holly. He sung and talked exactly like Buddy Holly. And all of his mannerisms were exactly like Buddy Holly. And I knew these guys for a very, very long time. He was so good at being the character of Buddy Holly that when the Buddy Holly story actually came out, and actually there was that small tour, the Broadway tour of it, he actually was the star. And he was actually up for the role of Buddy Holly in the movie, but due to contractual reasons, he couldn't do it. But he was Buddy Holly, through and through. And,
well, I have my own Buddy Holly reincarnation story. I'm going to get to that in a second. So,
but back when I was working with them, and I actually dated the guy who was Buddy Holly, dated him for a while.
No.
Yeah, I did. And
no, this is like too twisted. Okay,
yeah,
so
I did.
I have to stop and fan
about
myself for a second. You just said to me, I want to make sure I know what you said, but I'm going to repeat it because my brain has to catch up to my ears. You just said to me that you knew some guy that was like the spitting image of Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
You're talking about the reincarnation of Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
And you dated him?
Yeah. About 2 years.
Oh, my God. This is like weird. I'm like in some parallel time zone, the Land Before Time, Part 3 or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
now that I've